is a senior adjunct fellow with the American Security Project. He's a commentator on Arab-Israeli affairs. He joins me from Washington. Mr. Elsalameen, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
So, as you just saw, I just want your response to the fact that you have Democrats and Republicans, very top-ranking members of Congress attending this National Jewish Leadership Conference in the city from which you join me now, supporting Israel. Your response?
First of all, there's nothing new here. It's obvious Republicans and Democrats support Israel, but what's really missing is the Jewish voice that is also very pro-peace. You have, first of all, the American Jewish community, it does not stand for children being murdered in Gaza, does not support women being killed, does not support a whole population being under siege. This is a Jewish voice that is very clear. What I'm hoping for, this is a humanitarian crisis before it is a political issue, that this Jewish voice is heard as well among Republicans and Democrats. And this is a legitimate and growing voice. There are Jews, by the way, who are trying to volunteer to send humanitarian aid to Gaza. This is, not everybody agrees with what the Prime Minister of Israel, Prime Minister Netanyahu, is doing. Not everybody agrees with this, and this should be noted and should be very clear.
I'm glad you bring up the point of peace. Absolutely excellent point. And since you bring up children, do you think Israel is deliberately targeting civilians in Gaza?
I think what is happening now is beyond any doubt that there are children that are dying. It doesn't matter what the intentions are. It doesn't matter who is to blame. What the facts are the facts. There are children that are dying, and we must stop this catastrophe. This is a humanitarian crisis. There are children and women dying. There are people that have nowhere to go. There are people that have no food, no water. We need to do something about it. And I'm hoping you allow me to use this opportunity as an appeal to the American people, to American generosity, to support organizations like the UNRWA and United Nations groups that are helping people. I have been in touch with friends in Gaza. They have one clear message, and I've talked to them before coming on your show. I said, do you have any message to the world? And their message is this: we want to live. We want to live. So
but
please
Fadi,
help us, help them.
I just have to push you and just be fair on the other side as well, because Israel's #1 argument is that it is Hamas placing these civilians, placing these children in harm's way on purpose to make Israel look heartless. Your response to that?
My response is this. First of all, playing the blame game doesn't yield any results.
Both sides are blaming both sides.
I understand, but that doesn't help anybody. If you want to look at this from an American perspective, forget the Israeli and the Palestinian. You had Secretary of State John Kerry, you had President Obama pushing for a ceasefire from day one. They worked on a peace agreement. When Prime Minister Netanyahu frees 1,000 Palestinian prisoners in return for one Israeli soldier that Hamas captured, and at the same time refuses to engage on any kind of prisoner swap with Secretary of State John Kerry, this is a clear message that Netanyahu likes to engage with Hamas. That's the partner that he prefers to deal with. How else do you explain him not allowing Secretary of State John Kerry to succeed in his efforts?
I can't explain it because I'm not Secretary of State John Kerry, nor am I Benjamin Netanyahu. The question, though, for you is, what is the priority? When we talk about, you bring up peace, the goal for a permanent ceasefire, what is it that, #1, what is it that Hamas wants to stop this?
The priority right now, I've spoken with some of the Palestinian and the Egyptians who are involved in putting the ceasefire together. There's a Palestinian delegation that is coming under the leadership of President Mahmoud Abbas to Cairo. The Israelis will be involved in this, the Egyptians are involved in this, and apparently there is some kind of an agreement that is being formulated towards an immediate ceasefire that will be followed up with political results, meaning that satisfy both needs. Meaning Hamas are asking that some of the siege is to be lifted, so there will be some opening in the Rafah crossing on the Egyptian side.
So it's the border crossings, would that be correct? The blockade, the border crossings would be priority #1, open them up.
Absolutely.
Okay, absolutely. What about the tunnels? Because, you hear that they certainly, it depends on the perspective. You have to look at both sides. On one side, they say, absolutely, we're trying to get in food and water and necessary, essential elements to get in for the civilians of Gaza. At the same time, weaponry, arming Hamas. Which is it? Or both?
Look, when there is one Palestinian state that is strong, you have to have a monopoly on force and you have to have a monopoly on borders. When you have no control over borders, people cannot bring in food, water, they can't move. Hamas obviously is trying to answer both its needs and other people, and everybody knows that those tunnels don't only bring
But what
weapons,
is the primary, Fadi? What is the primary purpose of those tunnels?
They serve two purposes. It's very clear. They're bringing weapons and they do also bring in food and water and other necessities because the borders are not open.
And that is the priority number one for Hamas, to open those borders. But we wait. The world waits.
No, it's
Both
not
sides
just
continue
Hamas's
to wait.
priority. Sorry, but it's not just Hamas's priority. It is a Palestinian priority. You have 2 million people under siege. How else are they going to live?
I understand. I know. I understand. I understand. Fadi Elsalameen, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your voice with us. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Breaking news here into CNN. One of the fugitives